Welcome everyone to the Board of Health Monday, November 10th, 2025 meeting at 5 p.m., which will be virtual. Let me read this is the call to order. Let me read some disclosures here. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on March 29th, 2023. This meeting will be conducted via remote means as long as members of the public can easily access the proceedings in real time and participate remotely. Until further notice, this meeting will no longer be broadcast live, but it may be watched when the show is replayed on YouTube. Members of this public who wish to participate in the meeting may do so at the following manner: through Zoom with the meeting ID 982-8631-0834 and a passcode of 300663. You may also send any comment or question to publichealth@plymouth-ma.gov. It will be entered into record and, as practicable, as well as time permitting, read and addressed by the Board of Health. So call to order. I'm going to do a roll call of the Board of Health members. Dr. Reed.
I don't see that she has joined us.
Okay. Dr. Potvin.
I'm present.
Amy Palmer. Okay, I see the thumbs up. Meg Payne.
Present.
And thank you. And myself makes 4 members present. We do have an open for an alternate that's going through the process through the appointing body. So hopefully over the next few weeks, we'll have that alternate position filled. So thank you. Next are Plymouth High School representatives. Do we have Madison Mack from Plymouth North available? Charlie Walker from Plymouth South. Okay, neither said present, so we will go from there. Any public comment? Please raise your hand, your digital hand, to be recognized at this moment. I don't see any. So from there, we'll go to the approval of minutes of October 8th, 2025. I take it everyone's got that. Any questions before I entertain a motion to approve the minutes of 10/8/2025? Is there a motion to approve the minutes of 10/8/2025?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Amy. Is there a second?
I wasn't here, so I'm going to abstain.
I think you can second the motion and then abstain in voting if you wanted to.
Okay, if that's true, then I will second.
Thanks. With a first from Amy and a second from Meg. Any questions, discussions from the Board of Health members? No, I'll take a vote. Dr. Potvin?
I wasn't present. I was traveling, so I abstained.
Amy Palmer?
I approve the minutes.
Meg Payne?
Abstained.
And I will approve the minutes as well. So that's 2-2, 2 abstentions.
I'll approve them.
Oh, thank you. Dr. Reed is joined us, so you're present. Dr. Reed, your vote is yes to approve?
Yes.
Okay, 3 approvals, 2 abstentions. The motion is moved. Thank you. Next on the agenda, and we're a little bit quick here, is the Global Kratom Coalition. Allison Smith, is she on the line?
I am. Can you guys see me? Hello. Hi.
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
Fabulous. I have slides that I would love to share. Is that all right if I share my screen?
But before you do that, if you could introduce yourself, you've got about 15 or so minutes for your presentation, and we'll take questions. We're a little bit ahead, so thank you for accommodating our time here, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, of course. Well, likewise, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I'm really glad to be able to get to converse with you guys on this. And hello to Karen. It's nice to see you. My name is Allison Smith. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the Global Kratom Coalition. And my colleague Matt Lowe is also on. He's the Executive Director for the Global Kratom Coalition. So just as a brief background, we are a coalition of consumers, scientific experts, and responsible businesses that are advocating for regulated access to natural kratom products. And then we are also advocating for consumer protections regarding concentrated synthetic 7-OH. So the purpose of this presentation tonight is to just help distinguish between those two items and to provide potentially guidance as you guys consider potential regulations and ordinances within the town of Plymouth. So with that, if it's okay, I will go ahead and share my screen and make sure I click the right one because I'm really good about doing that. Okay, can you guys see the presentation?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yes.
Fabulous. Okay, so if I can click it. Okay, so as I said, our entire purpose is to help distinguish between natural kratom leaf and concentrated synthetic 7-OH. So natural kratom leaf is a botanical from Southeast Asia that typically comes in the form of powder, capsules, or teas. In contrast, you have concentrated synthetic 7-OH, which are typically in the form of pills or gummies. A couple of weeks ago, when you guys had a meeting, there was, and I apologize, I'm blanking on her name. She brought in a couple of examples of what the 7-OH products look like, and she did a fabulous job explaining how 7-OH is very dangerous to the public. And so these are pretty blatant in the fact that they're marketed to mimic opioid-like drugs. I mean, they say Perks, Roxy, Hydroxy, Oxyn. So there's a very clear contrast between these two types of products that are on the market. So the history of use is that natural kratom products have centuries of traditional use and have been consumed in the United States for over 50 years. They were brought over from veterans in the Vietnam War, and today approximately 23 million people report using natural kratom products. In contrast, 7-OH does not have any sort of traditional use. It was introduced a couple of years ago, and it's obviously grown exponentially because of its addictive and concentrated nature. There's no scientific basis for its safety, and it's often characterized as a pure opioid. In contrast, natural kratom products, they do have preclinical and clinical trial to demonstrate the safety of kratom products. So as far as the potency and pharmacology goes, one of those studies was an animal model where they tested mitragynine and kratom tea, which had demonstrated that they do not cause respiratory depression. It has a low potential for abuse. Kratom can be habit forming, but if you consistently consume natural kratom products and then suddenly stop, you're not going to have opioid-like withdrawal symptoms. It's typically a headache or a bit of like a stuffy nose. And that is because the alkaloid profile of a natural kratom product is a buffer to any of those opioid-like effects. So 7-OH does occur naturally in the kratom product or natural kratom plant, but it is minuscule. So if you refer to the composition of the natural kratom leaf that we have here, half of it is fiber, another quarter of it is antioxidants. And then right here in this little sliver is 2.5%. And that's about 40 to 50 different alkaloids. And one of those is 7-OH. And it's, again, very, very small. That's how when you get 7-OH is when you take that tiny minuscule amount you isolate it, you combine it with pool chemicals or whatever other chemicals they're using, and turn it into a tablet, and you have 7-OH products. And they are potent opioid products. They're novel opioid products, excuse me. They're marketed for chronic pain and opioid use disorder. But I mean, if you look at some of those packages, like Cosmic Ludes, they're not saying that's not, we know what that's being used for. So concentrated synthetic 7-OH is 13 times stronger than morphine and 100 times stronger than natural kratom leaf. A lot of words here. I apologize in advance. So earlier this year, July 29th, actually, the FDA, DEA, and HHS announced a joint effort to put 7-hydroxymitragynine on the Schedule 1 of the CSA. That's the federal level. At the state level, you have states like Florida, where the Attorney General added 7-OH to their emergency schedule, and Kentucky is considering doing the same thing. They announced that last week. Crucially, all of these actions, they distinguish between natural kratom products. So you have, excuse me, my sister's calling me. We had some family drama and I'm trying to get her to not call me. So you have natural kratom products that are like very clearly distinguished. In fact, FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty McCary has frequently said that the federal action does not pertain to natural kratom products. And then actually, I think it was a couple of weeks ago when you guys were looking at those 7-OH products that were brought in. One of them on the package said that they could not be sold in like 17 different states. That is in reference to these Kratom Consumer Protection Acts, where states have gone through and said, you cannot sell these types of products, but natural kratom products are still allowed to be sold. So that's what federal and state authorities are saying. When it comes to scientists, last year the FDA did a single ascending dose study, or a SAD study, where participants were able to consume or given up to about 12 grams of natural kratom products, which is 4 times the normal serving, and they found no concerning adverse effects. The leaf was well tolerated in high doses. In contrast, there are toxicology and case reports where 7-OH has demonstrated its opioid-like risks and has caused respiratory depression. There are several public health reports all across the country where they've talked about 7-OH causing illness and very severe withdrawal symptoms, and unfortunately, in a few cases, there have been deaths. So as far as adverse events go, adverse events with natural kratom products are fairly rare. They're not reported very often, and typically when you do have an adverse event, it's usually a seizure. Again, it doesn't happen often, but that has been the most common one. There have been some deaths that have been associated with mitragynine overdose. These are difficult because typically when you have kratom present in a death, there's usually polysubstance use or a pre-existing medical condition. That's not to say that death doesn't happen. It's just very, very rare. There's not a lot of information or studies that have found that natural kratom products have a certain level of lethality. That's not to say that it doesn't. Water can kill you. But it's just there's not a lot of research out there, and the research that is there has said that kratom isn't typically a lethal product. In contrast, it's pretty clear the correlation between 7-OH and adverse events. You have series of serious illnesses and again, fatalities linked to 7-OH products. And these are significantly likely given the potent nature of these concentrated products. And so all this to say, as you guys consider policy solutions, the one that we would really want to advocate for you is very similar to what is going on at the federal and at some of the state levels, such as Florida, which is allowing regulated access to natural kratom products. Make it 21 and up, put it behind a glass shelf, have an individual looking to purchase this show a government issued ID and make packaging requirements that they're not attractive to children. We support efforts to ban concentrated synthetic 7-OH. These products are bad, they are dangerous, and they don't need to be available, especially to children, which is how they tend to market themselves. And so that is the spiel. I will end my slide here, but that is what we just wanted to discuss with you guys and offer an opportunity to have a conversation before the public hearing.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing the public hearing up. Hopefully there's a call for speakers and you can work through that through the Public Health Division through Karen Keenan and her staff to get on the list for that public hearing.
Absolutely.
I'll start with any questions from the Board of Health members regarding your presentation. Dr. Reed, I see your physical hand, not your digital hand, but I see your physical hand up, so that we'll start with you.
Allison, thank you for a very good presentation about the differences. I think it's very important to know that. I have a couple of questions about you mentioned in these other states they're requiring people to have a license. Are you talking about the marijuana license or the license that they get for that, or what were you talking about?
I'm sorry, I probably worded that. I got a little shaken up by my sister's phone call. Like your driver's license. If
Oh,
you
a
go
driver's
in
license.
into a store, like you have to have a government issued ID that says I am 21 enough,
What's your
I can
age?
purchase these products. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so to dovetail on that then, where do you buy these products? If they're obviously not being bought in the cannabis areas where people are buying cannabis, where do you buy them?
They're typically sold in smoke shops, and that is the most common place that I've seen them. There are convenience stores that also sell these products. For every state, it is different. So somewhere like Illinois, where you have a very robust medical marijuana or excuse me, recreational marijuana program, the way that they sell these products is very different than a state that doesn't. Matt, I will also defer to you if you have any additions, but it's my understanding that it's typically smoke shops and convenience stores where they're sold. You can
Yeah,
also purchase them online.
it's smoke shops, it's convenience stores, and it's also online. Exactly that. Um, We've seen the expansion of natural kratom leaf into more formal retail, which is a good thing because there's significantly more control in formal retail. When it's left onto the outskirts, we find that labeling is bad. We find that any products seem to get in. So big box retail is a much better environment for a product like this to ensure that there's checks and balances.
I always worry about the online stuff. How can you prove that? But I understand.
It is difficult. It is difficult. It's a challenge. We've done a tremendous amount of work to bring bad actors to order. So we report religiously, probably 10, 15 companies a month to state and federal regulators that aren't doing what they need to be doing. You need to be age gating, even if it's online. You need to be submitting your ID. It's something we take incredibly seriously. There's no reason that a child should be consuming a natural kratom leaf product. And we take that responsibility incredibly seriously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. I see Meg, your hand is up. We'll go to you.
Yes, hi. Allison, I think you were speaking to this earlier in the presentation. Can you just confirm or clarify if the natural kratom leaf is addictive?
If you don't mind, can I handle that question?
Sure.
I don't mind.
So, yes. So, I mean, yeah, you guys will know this better than me, but if you look at a DSM-5 profile for natural kratom leaf and you put it on a relative landscape of substances, and we can send you this information. We just did a meta-analysis of with Dr. Avina from Mount Sinai. She's one of the leading addiction experts in the country, and we looked at a landscape of substances on a DSM-5 profile. And what you find with natural kratom leaf, and again, this is not the extracts and the synthetics, it's just the natural leaf that it is habit forming. So you've got a prevalence rate of about 20%, but the severity is mild to moderate. So you're looking at 70 to 75% of people that do develop a use disorder have a mild to moderate profile. And then the symptoms of that are normally physical. So you want to take more, and when you stop, you get physical withdrawals. We don't see psychological and irresponsible use behavior with natural kratom leaf. If you look at it on a relative landscape when it comes to severity, it sits in the same vein as caffeine.
Thank you.
But just to be clear, as soon as you move away from the natural leaf, you move to the concentrated synthetic 7-OH products. No one's done the analysis yet in terms of use disorder, but what we are seeing and what the leading scientists out of University of Florida, John Hopkins, are saying is this is presenting exactly like a traditional opioid. You're seeing high prevalence, significant severity, and then you're seeing across the spectrum of the whatever it is, 9 or 12 different symptoms, you're seeing all of them.
Thank you. Any further questions, Meg? We'll go to Dr. Potvin. I see your digital hand. You have questions for the presenters?
Yes, I do. So there's a lot of reports that 7-OH is extraordinarily highly addictive. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. The 7-OH in its concentrated form is highly addictive. Now, as a compound, it's 13 times more potent than morphine, and it expresses abuse liability higher than morphine. Again, if you went and picked a kratom leaf off a tree and you tested it, you wouldn't find 7-OH present. When it dries, some of the mitragynine degrades into 7-OH, normally at about 0.04% of the weight of the leaf material. These individuals are taking that 0.04%, using a semi-synthetic process to amp it up by 100, 200 times, and they're putting that onto the market, stripped of all the fiber, all the antioxidants, and all the other 50 different alkaloids. And that point is important because each of those alkaloids attach to different receptors in the brain site. So adrenergic, serotonergic, and partial mu opioid agonists. But the mitragynine with the speciosylidine, the speciogynin, all mitigate that pharmacology. When you've just got the 7-OH on its own, we are seeing highly potent and highly addictive. And your tolerance for these products grows on an extending curve. So we're seeing people starting at 10 milligrams, and within 2 to 3 months, they're at 100 milligrams a day, costing them $100 a day.
So the 7-OH, as far as I can determine, is not approved for any kind of medical use,
No,
or as a food supplement. Is that correct?
no, correct.
Okay.
So
The half-life of kratom, I found evidence that that's the biological half-life is about 3 to 4 hours, but I assume that's the leaf form.
yes.
It would be different, I would assume, for the synthetic form.
Yes, that's my understanding. One of the biggest issues we're facing at the moment is identification of 7-OH toxicity or issues and deaths. So 7-OH leaves the blood system incredibly quickly. You're talking about a half-life of less than 24 hours. So it's very hard to test for 7-OH in someone that died because number one, no one's testing it for it. Number two, it leaves your bloodstream very, very quickly.
Okay. So it's pretty obvious that there's a big difference between the natural leaf and the synthetic product. And I've noticed looking at other regulations that some towns have already put out, as opposed to the template that the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards provided, that some towns have actually banned the sale, distribution, or manufacture of both natural or synthetic.
Yes.
Whereas the MAHB, the Massachusetts Association of Health Board's regulation template, is specifically aimed at the synthetically derived.
Yes.
So, I mean, in one case they're making a distinction between the two, and the other case apparently they're not.
Yes, that's a problem that we're seeing all over the country, to be honest. Some people are seeing this distinction and also realizing you've got 23 million people that are using natural kratom leaf and have been using it for decades without issue. Some are not. Some are throwing the baby out with the bathwater. What I can tell you is the FDA has made the distinction very clearly between concentrated synthetic 7-OH and natural kratom leaf, and that's the path that they're going on. So it's a challenging situation.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Thank you. Any other questions from the Board of
So-
Health members?
Sorry, just one add on, and we'll share this information with you. There are multiple bills that have been filed in the state seeking to regulate, some are seeking to prohibit. We can share those with you as well.
I just wanted to give Amy Palmer a chance. Did you have any questions, Amy? I see your head shaking. All right, I had just had a couple of follow-up questions. Thank you again, Matthew and Allison, I believe, for the presentation. I do appreciate the time you've taken and in educating us as a board and you know, going forward with our public forum that we'll have. That will be another opportunity for education and awareness on this. As you mentioned, it's a problem with the to use a term, lack of a better term, throwing the baby with the bathwater out. So that's an issue with education. But relative to the presentation, is Massachusetts one of the 17 states? I don't believe so.
No.
Okay.
So Massachusetts hasn't passed anything. At the moment, there are 7 bills at a state level that are being considered. It looks like at this stage there's a regulatory bill. It's a good regulatory bill that Rep Cusack is carrying. That's sitting in House Ways and Means at the moment, and we believe that it'll start to move pretty soon. But there is a lot of activity happening at the state level while everyone's wrestling with this issue.
Okay, thank you. And then you touched on kind of a pattern. You compared natural leaf to caffeine. Now on the spectrum, how does that compare? I know with nicotine and cigarette, where more
I could say
less addictive, more addictive. I don't want to
no.
put words in your mouth, but
No, it's less addictive in terms of prevalence. I must check on the severity. I've got we can actually share and
yeah.
we will share the paper that we did, which has been done by Dr. Avina. It's actually just about to be published. We'll share that information with you so you can have a look at it and see the spectrum. I don't want to whitewash the issue in any way. And the severity is similar to caffeine, but that's not to say it's wholly like caffeine. Really, the best place to look at this data is the survey data out of Johns Hopkins University, which we can share with you, which goes into the motivations for use, the consequences of the use. For the most part, what we're seeing is responsible use that's a net benefit to people's lives. However, like with anything, the poison's in the dose. And we do see that people that consume more than what the average serving size is, which is between 2 to 5 grams, twice to 3 times a day. When you start getting up to 20 grams a day, we start to see problematic use kick in. So a big thing that we push is a significant amount of appropriate labeling and a lot of consumer education. But what we do find with the leaf, because it's so fibrous, it is difficult to consume too much. When you've got the extracts where they strip out all the fiber, that's typically where we're seeing the overconsumption patterns kick in.
And it sounds like from the presentation, you're and I don't want to put words in your mouths, but with 21 and above kind of policies in place, it lines up with tobacco, right? You know, you have to be 21 or older is what you're, you know,
Yes.
outside of having no policy or not a lot of legislation, and it's being left to the local boards of health. this is the stance that your organization's
Yeah.
kind of taking. Okay.
So I think at a local level, it's difficult to put together a robust regulatory model, or as robust as we would like. So what we find is the biggest impact you can have is age gating, ensuring products are advertised in a way that are attractive to children, and then also ensuring that the products are put in places in the stores where other 21 plus products would be stored. So only accessible to a store employee, etc. So we find that those are the most effective at a local level. We do see bans on synthetics at a local level, which I think is great because it sets intent. Often what we're seeing with enforcement is once the legislation's in place, most of the stores want to do the right thing and they will remove the products that are non-compliant. However, when there's full bans, what we've seen, and it's unfortunate, is the good actors leave and it gets replaced with the synthetics and the 7OH products because they don't mind if they get caught. Um, most of our members, only natural kratom leaf members, even on their online store, if it's not legal to sell in a small town of 3,000 people, they will ring fence that town and not send any product to it. If it's age gated to 18, they'll ring fence it for 18, 21, etc. So there's a bit of a spectrum. But we find age gating is the easiest way to deal with this issue. And then, to be honest, we push a lot of people to apply pressure on the state and say, something needs to be done here. Please pass some type of regulation. We've seen that happen recently in a couple of states, and it's very helpful in pushing bills forward.
Thank you. We're coming up on time, or maybe even a little over. I wanted to give the Public Health Division an opportunity to ask you some questions as well. Karen or Margaret, any questions from your area?
I have a question. Karen, did you have a question? Do you want to go first?
Nope, you can go.
Okay, so with the 7OH, there's been studies done where there's a lot of like polysubstance use with that. What kind of studies have been done with the actual leaf in regards to polysubstance use?
So I don't know of any polysubstance. Are you talking about clinical trials or preclinical trials?
Anything?
So I
Anything?
don't
Is
know
there
if
any data
there's
on
actually
it?
there's been very little science that's been published on concentrated synthetic 7OH. I think there's been a rat study recently that was done on respiratory depression, and then a few bits and bobs. When it comes to natural kratom leaf, there's been north of 270 peer-reviewed papers that have been published in the last decade on a multitude of different things, including 17 human clinical trials over the last decade. In terms of polysubstance use, what we know is that there seems to be some concern around the use of natural kratom leaf in very high levels, and it's actually typically in extracts in use with certain medications. So it's always advised that an individual, if they are on some kind of ongoing medication, that they should be consulting their healthcare practitioner prior to using any substances. So there is some inhibition of certain enzymes, etc., that need to be taken into account. But if you would like, I can chat to one of our scientific experts and get them to send you more information on that.
I would like to see that if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Sure.
I don't have any questions. Thank you for the presentation. I'm sort of the one who started spearheading this project here in Plymouth, so I appreciate, when Allison reached out to me, to do, because we're in a fact-finding mission, right? That's what we're doing here. So, I would encourage, both you, Matthew, and Allison to just send me a quick email if you'd like to be on the speakers list for our, forum. That's going to be open to the public, as our meetings are. So people from the public can come and they can speak as well. But again, that's that continuation of the fact-finding mission. There'll be no votes taken that night or anything like that. It really is just a gathering of information for the board and for the division.
Thank you so much for that. I just want to say I really appreciate your guys' openness to talk to us about this issue. And if at any time you've got additional questions, something pops to mind, you want to speak to an expert, we're here to help.
Great.
I will echo those sentiments. As someone who works in government affairs and advocacy, I really do appreciate you guys letting us take up some of your time this evening. And as far as follow-up along with the public hearing, Karen, would it be best for me to send these documents and contact information to you?
Yeah, that would be great, Allison. If you just want to send them to me and I can distribute them to everybody.
Great.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you guys again. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Allison.
Of course.
Thank you,
Bye.
Matthew. Have a good
Thank you.
evening.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.
Well, thank you. Moving on with our agenda, we've got Board of Health member updates. If you have your agenda in front of you, I'll just go from top to bottom. We'll start with the micromobility. There was a micromobility presentation. Oh, I see
Yeah, Amy.
Amy's
Yeah.
digital hand,
Yeah,
sorry. Go
sorry.
ahead, Amy.
I was just wondering, I have to leave at 6 and I didn't, I wanted to add the MHOA shout out. So I wanted to just, if I was gonna ask if we could make that at the top of the next level of the agenda.
Absolutely. Let's start with the bottom up then.
Sorry about that. I know.
No worries. We're very flexible and we want to hear those shout outs and kind of your top 2, 3 takeaways because um, a super majority of the folks
Yes.
within the public division, health division, and the Board of Health attended. I think Dr. Reed and I are the only ones, and I'm actually looking forward to hearing about it. So
Well,
in this open
before
forum.
Amy starts, because I know she won't say this herself, but
Okay.
Miss Donovan Palmer was awarded a very special award at the conference, recognizing her contribution to MHOA. So I knew she wouldn't actually say that in her summary, so I figured I had to take it upon myself
You're
to
very
sure. So congratulations, Amy. That was very well deserved.
Thank you very much. I was very honored to be acknowledged for the work that I do with MHOA. I feel like it's such an important organization for me as a health director, but us all together. And I want to, of course, give a shout out to Margaret and Karen. Margaret gave an amazing presentation on our fog regulations. I know a lot of people are interested.
Thank you.
I use the Plymouth fog regulations in my work as something to aspire to and to use as an example on how to have an effective fog treatment. But I thought, when I mentioned it to Karen, Margaret, she said, you were out of your comfort zone. You did not seem like it at all. You were great. So I just want to give Margaret a giant shout out about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the conference itself, I always say it's my favorite 3 days of work. But one thing that I wanted to bring to this board's attention was the last day we did a lot of work on advocacy for local public health and reaching out to our state and federal legislators to, promote local public health. And one of the things that I think is the most important is how it funds our regional coalitions. So I feel, Devin was there presenting at MHOA. I just wasn't able to get to her session, but those are like, if we didn't have this money, we wouldn't have Devin and we wouldn't have our inspector and we wouldn't have, and that kind of, I mean, we all understand how strained local government is when it comes to funding. And we really need to kind of promote moving past thinking that this is the only way we can get funded. I think one of the things that we talked about in the advocacy thing, we did write some postcards out to our legislators, but I think I'm hoping that if you guys are up for it, you can join the MPHA, Mass Public Health Alliance. They, on their website, they have e-blasts that they send out, and there's like a monthly campaign of like, hey, look at the good work local health is doing. And they make it very easy. They make sure that it's advocacy, not lobbying, like that kind of stuff. Whenever I get it, I send it to I send it to Michelle Badger and Dylan Fernandez, and then to the representative and senator and where I work. But it gets them thinking like this, like you need to fund this program. And I just want to bring that to this board to say, it's really important that we all work together, and to hear from board members, you know, we're all their constituents. So I'm hoping if you have any questions, definitely let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you. I know that part of the structure that I've been at, not to use the pun, no pun intended, advocacy is having engagement with our appointing body of the select board, as well as just community engagement, whether it's the Plymouth High School students, the commissioner of HHS, and just having alignment within those entities that, to your point, having advocacy to our delegation, Dylan and Michelle, is not just coming from one appointed body of the Board of Health of Plymouth, but really a multi-pronged approach. And I think hearing what you said tonight, that's going to be something in the back of my mind when I speak with the commissioner, as well as the select board and the town management. So thank you for bringing that up, that advocacy part. Anything else that you'd want to bring? Takeaways from the conference?
No, sorry, my dogs are about to start barking, so if they bark, I'll go on mute. But yeah, no, I mean, I think every presentation I think has so much value to us that I really, oh, sorry, I'll go on mute.
Okay. Dr. Potvin, I see your digital hand. We'll go from you.
Yeah, my experience, I wasn't able to go last year, but I did go this year. As with anything, that I think there was probably 700 or 900 people present. It's a fairly large meeting. The frustrating part of it is they do breakout sessions. And so there's multiple things going on all at the same time, usually about 5 of them. And sometimes it's a little difficult to figure out, which one should I actually go and listen to. So I guess always hoping that, when you have a group of people from the same sort of group, that they'll go to different ones. So the ones I obviously made sure that I was present for was the ones about SAFE 2.0, the Public Health Excellence Grant ones. There was a lot of concerns expressed about the funding stream and how long it may last and where is the money going to come from. It's guaranteed only until the end of fiscal year 27. After that, basically nobody knows. And the problem there is that if they go back to just relying on state funding, they're looking at what's going to happen for the fiscal year 28. And they probably won't know until fiscal year 28 is already in progress. So that can be a bit of a problem. The other thing I went, because it's one of my really main interests, and I think Amy's interested in this too, is the thing that's about generational tobacco regulations. It has been growing, but very, very slowly across the state. While we were there, we heard that 2 more towns have actually adopted it. For those that didn't know what it means, it's just that those that are born after a certain date, which can be set by the regulation, can no longer buy tobacco products, period. I think I'm right, Amy. Sometimes I get a little confused about that. So there was a lot of complaints from obviously the community people that come in and are lobbying on the behalf of the convenience stores and other places that sell these products. They said that for those that had adopted this, there was no indication that their sales volumes for total sales volumes had really been hurt all that much, because they generally tended to reorganize and reprioritize their approach to selling the various products they have. But it's still a very controversial sort of thing. They did emphasize that what happens when you adopt these kind of things is there are very slow, gradual reduction in the number of people who would purchase tobacco products. Because, if they're older than a certain age, they can for the rest of their lives. And, if they're younger and they hit one of those deadlines, then it's one deadline, that's going to occur for some of them 1 year and others for another year. And only those that would actually take up, use of tobacco products are affected anyway. So at the moment, there was 2 towns while we were there that actually announced that they had just adopted it. There are now statewide 20 towns that have actually adopted this kind of regulation. So it's not many, but it is sort of happening also. Well, I thought that was worth learning about. I also learned quite a bit about running, the kind of things that we do occasionally, which is these public forums or judicial or non-judicial public meetings. There's a lot of set procedures that you have to follow for those, and it varies from one to the other depending on which type of public forum or judicial hearing that you're doing. There's new things about the fine structures. So I was told that because non-criminal disposition only allows fines of up to $300, that, for instance, the regulation for the 70H sale is actually going to be suggested by the state to be $1,000. Well, to do that, it's going to require, I was told, to issue a cease and desist order every time you find someone in violation of a local regulation that entails a fine at that level. Obviously, you don't have to do that if the fines are at $300. But that's the first I ever heard of this, and I asked if there was a template for cease and desist orders if you had to use them, and I was told there is. And I've asked also, well, the state fines for underage sales are $1,000, $2,000, and $5,000, but that's a state law. But there is some controversy as to whether you would have to use the cease and desist order in those cases also. So you learn a lot of these things, and I think one of the main takeaways is you make a lot of connections. You can expand your networking immensely when you go to these kind of meetings.
Okay. I see, Amy, your hand up again. I know you're on a time basis, but did you want to say something, follow up?
Just to build on what Barry was saying about the nicotine-free generation, during the keynote speaker, Dr. Howard Koh was speaking about, he just reminded us what we thought was impossible around tobacco control along the whole way. Was it impossible to make have smoke-free workplaces? Was it impossible to get everybody at 21? Was it impossible to get flavored bans? So that was, I thought, an interesting way to think about nicotine-free generation, that every step along the way in tobacco control we thought was impossible at the beginning.
Any others? Meg, I see your digital hand. Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to say it was really nice to be around other like-minded people. I felt like the vibe was generally uplifting, which was nice because it's in today's world it's hard to see that sometimes. So it was just really nice to be around to be in that energy. Some of the sessions I attended were around hoarding and vaccines, and how epidemiologists can assist with TB surveillance. I loved everything I heard. There wasn't one session where I thought, oh, that was a waste of my time. And there were so many topics. I agree with what Barry said, as far as it was hard to even choose which session to attend. And Devin and I had a conversation, and she was like, I'm going to this one. I'm like, okay, take notes. I wanted to see that, so But it was nice. It was nice to be with everybody and it was good information and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. And I think I'll close it out with any feedback from the Public Health Division, Karen and team, if you want to mention anything. Otherwise, we can move on.
No, I would just say that I would encourage Dr. Reed and Lorenzo next year, you know what I mean, to think about it. I think it's interesting to hear different speakers talk about issues that do impact public health. And it is, as Megan, Amy said, it is nice to sort of feel like you're not alone, that
Mhm.
there are, other towns are trying to do the same things that we're doing. Other towns hit the same roadblocks that we do, and other towns, and then she has successes too. It's not just, all like doom and gloom with public health. Sometimes it's amazing stuff with public health. So I just, would encourage both of you to kind of pencil that in your calendar when we find out when the dates are for next year.
Yeah, I know that the the attendance numbers, to me, when Dr. Potvin mentioned 700 to 900 folks, wow, that's first thing that comes off to my mind is that's a large group. And then when I think about all the people all the towns and municipalities in Massachusetts, and I just off the top of my head, I think there's over 350-ish or 325, something like that, municipalities and towns, and they're sending folks to it, as well as people in the industry to attend. It's kind of an amazing thing. So thank you for all your comments there. Dr.
Okay.
Poffin?
I just wanted to add that they actually do know when they're going to schedule it next year. And it's going to be the last week in October rather than the first week in November, which I thought was a good idea because then you're still in daylight savings time. And, it makes it a lot easier.
Dr. Reed, did you have any final questions for our delegation that attended? Okay, thank you. All right, well, from there, we'll move on to tobacco regulations, going from from bottom to top. I know at the last I don't know if it was the last board meeting, but we did talk about it, and I asked the question to the Public Health Division, what problem are we trying to solve? Does the current regulations hamper us in doing any kind of inspection or keeping to the laws of the Commonwealth? And with not kind of paraphrasing, I heard no, I didn't, Karen, if you want to chime in, but I didn't hear any items from the Public Health Division that is limiting the current regulations, that's limiting our ability to inspect and keep to the Commonwealth laws. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And the only thing, in our discussion, Lorenzo, would be that in the tobacco regulations, the word synthetic does not exist. So if the board wanted to think about that, to add, synthetic nicotine, not just naturally found nicotine, then that would open up more products that would not be able to be sold. And then you would have to think about if you want to say that's everybody, or if you want to say that that's, only for people who are under the age of 21.
Dr. Poffin?
Yes, thanks, Lorenzo. I regret that I wasn't able to participate in the discussion at the last meeting, but I remain extremely concerned about the oral nicotine pouches. The more I learn about them, the more worried I am. Part of the reason is that I think one of the things we're trying to do is to try to limit nicotine addiction developing in our children and our high school students. Because I think that's extremely important. The other thing that came up at the meeting, and I heard this several times, was that when you think about the oral nicotine pouches, the only ones that are packaged in safe packaging are the Zyn ones that are actually approved for retail use, I guess, by the FDA. The others are not. Reason that's important is there have been instances where very young children get their hands on these things and actually eat them. And some of them are attractive because they do still have some flavorings in them. They shouldn't be obviously sold to underage buyers, but just getting them into the home where young children are present creates a significant risk. And I think as Dr. Reed would know, the risk is elevated in younger people just because they have less mass, they're smaller. And so the dosage, if it's usually done as dosage per kilogram, the dosage that's safe for them is much, much lower than it is for an adult. And there have been cases where there's been nicotine poisoning observed in these very young children. So it's a little difficult, but I was hoping that the regulation that we currently had could just elucidate clearly more information about the nicotine pouches and make really sure that people are aware of the risks involved. And the fact that these are now gradually becoming the ideal sort of use for those that want nicotine, as opposed to the vaping even. I think this is currently probably going to become the primary way in which people get nicotine dosage. And I think that's happening among our school children even at the moment. So I've been worried about this ever since I first arrived on the Board of Health many years ago, before oral nicotine pouches were present and before vaping was present. And now I'm like 50 times or 100 times more worried than I was before.
I think we just have to be careful when we talk about maybe stopping the sale of something because a child could eat it, because then we could talk about every product that's ever been put on a shelf. There was a situation that happened where kids were eating those Tide Pods. Well, then that would be, is the charge of the Board of Health then to say that Tide Pods are banned in the town of Plymouth? I think we have to get away from that aspect of it. And then you could actually just look at the tobacco regulations and just make sure that there's education to our vendors that say that, our establishments, that this product can't be sold to anyone who's under the age of 21, which they are currently doing. That is happening. They do not sell to anyone who's under the age of 21. That's already happening. But I don't think we can make I would certainly not advise the board to make a decision based upon the fact that someone could eat it.
Oh, I mean, I agree, Karen. The bottom line is, how do we do whatever we can in order to discourage the use of these nicotine products among people who are young and not yet addicted, but could easily become so?
Yeah, and
It's hard to do, right?
Yeah, I strongly believe it's education, and I think it's a coordination between us at the division, the board, and maybe the school system, maybe other youth groups. I mean, I really do think that I truly believe there has to be more education at a very, very young age. Before we said we used to highlight high school students, then we went to middle school students. Well, now maybe it has to be fourth and fifth grade. Something like that. Like education has to start there so they can understand what the dangers are. When we go to these health fairs, we always bring information about how you can have a smoke-free home and how to talk to your children about, nicotine, things like that. So maybe we need to even start moving our base further down the age, and start educating there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I was hoping was that, I asked Cheryl Sabaro if our current regulation clearly banned the underage sale of oral nicotine pouches, and she said, no, it does not.
Why is that?
Why is that?
Because it is not specifically mentioned as one of the products that can't be sold to underage buyers. So that's why I inserted the description of it, and I included it among the the prohibitions for sale to underage buyers. So that was what I was hoping that.
But it is a nicotine product, and our regulation very clearly says
Yeah.
that they cannot sell nicotine products to people who are under the age of 21.
Yeah, I just thought, given the use kind of increase of those oral nicotine pouches, that it wouldn't hurt to put that in specifically as at least an example of something that is included, which is not necessarily a tobacco product. And those things are not, they use synthetic nicotine in them. So again, it goes back to your statement, Karen, that, you said there isn't really anything in our regulation that specifically gets into synthetic nicotine.
That's correct.
So I think we have to fix that.
Yeah, that is correct. And that's why I said that's the board can discuss that, and they can certainly make the determination to add that wording, because that does not exist in our current regulation.
No, these are all good points. I think that I'm just trying to get more clarity around it through nicotine use. Clearly it's a step, if you want to, this idea of generational free. I'm not so sure that, you're gonna need a broad coalition within the town and its citizenry to start to get to that point of view. So, but that's something that we could look at. Dr. Potvin, if you'd like to champion that with the language on synthetic nicotine, but we can take it from there.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that, because it's one of the things that I really, really, really have a lot of concern.
And we've had this, that's great. I think we should move forward with it, because I've been on the board in some fashion in the past. And part of it is doing the hard work of marshaling things through the process and closure around that. And if we had this on our radar and we've known about it for years, then shame on us as a board, but we'll try and take this forward and get closure to it as quick as we can, move it through the process, have a motion, take a vote, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thanks, Lorenzo.
You're welcome. Meg, you have your digital hand.
Just a comment to providing education at an earlier age. I remember having a DARE officer in my school growing up. I don't know why they did away with the DARE program, but I thought it was such a great program. I still remember my DARE officer. I loved him. We all loved him. It was all about education. How do you talk to your parents about smoking if they smoke? How do you talk to them about stopping? We talked a lot about peer pressure, and this will happen to you. What do you do in this scenario? A lot of like role playing. We all had t-shirts. We all signed a contract saying we weren't going to smoke. And I just remember, like, I have such good memories of the DARE program, and I feel like most people that I talk to about it do. And I'm not sure why it went away, but it was like, I remember it being like elementary school age, and it was really nice. I'm sad it went away.
Yeah, I remember that too, Meg. And to your point, yeah, why did it go away? And maybe someone Dr. Reed, showing the money, show me the money, right? We talk about SAFE 2.0. Dr. Potvin mentioned it. It's all about the money, the priorities, and advocating for within our legislative bodies that this is a priority of the citizenry. Really dovetails into what Amy talked about in her advocacy. So, and then dovetails into what, going forward with SAFE 2.0 and the PHE and how that's all going to get funded and, in this challenging budget seasons and things like that. So, yep. Any other questions around the tobacco regulations? With that, move on to the Citizens Advisory Committee. I know that we want to have one. Karen, I know you've been out for last week. I'll get with you. I don't really have any updates on where that is, where if we had advertised for it yet or anything like that, but I did start advertising it within my own personal network
Okay.
to say that there is a citizens advisory committee that will be set forth. So if you can share some status or shed some light, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll check too to see if it's posted in the boards and committees to make sure it's there.
Okay. And to the board, I was thinking it was going to be three at the, start out with three. Let's see if we can get three people engaged and involved. And, just like the Plymouth High School representatives would expect them to at least attend one of the Board of Health monthly meetings. Typically, this meeting has got the most discussion and openness about things that are on the radar. It's not necessarily the blocking and tackling of public health division with variances and things like that, but would expect that to happen, and they're at least a good minor league team or farm team into the Board of Health. We've got an opening as an alternate, but I think if you look at that, it's safe to say that they're engaged in the process and that while it's not binding by any means, but to show that you're engaged, you're attending the Citizens Advisory Committee, and then it gives the appointing body a chance to say, it's not just applications that come ad hoc, but here's some folks that really want to move on to the next level and be a board member and work with the Public Health Division to move Plymouth forward in its public health goals and objectives. So, all right. Nothing more from that. Dr. Reed, I think the next two items, the Plymouth School Nurses Wellness and the Youth Development Collaborative, if you have any updates for us.
Yes, so I have been attending in past years the school nurse wellness meetings. Actually hasn't met yet. The first meeting is on the 19th. So but just so that you know, the different school nurses as well as people that are working within the schools from the community with different programs go to this, and it's very enlightening to know what these people are trying to do for our youth. Um, and I've had some good contacts through that, and feel like we get some pretty good information from them. So I will let you know after my first meeting. The other one that I just started attending this year, and I've been to 3 different meetings, is the Plymouth Youth Development Collaboration, and you all met May when she came and talked about Kratom. She is the head of that group. That group represents members of the community that have varying projects that they are doing, again, with youth within our community. It's a very vibrant group. And two of the things that came up at this last meeting that I wanted to let you know about. One, the area of Algonquin where the housing is in that area. They have very good programs in that community that are run by the people that sort of supervise the housing there. And they focus a lot on, because of course it is sort of an underserved area. They focus a lot on the children. And they had a special trunk or treat thing for them for Halloween to keep them, in the area and safe. But I wanted to let you all know that they're going to be doing a special program in December, again for the kids, called Kids Shopping. And what they're going to do is they're asking for donations from wherever, from the public, things in, in your house that you don't want anymore, presents somebody gave you that you want to re-gift, or those kinds of things. They gather those all together in a room, and then they get the kids to they get a ticket, and then they can go and they can pick something out of there for their parents or for their siblings or for their grandma. Um, and then they have a little wrapping station where they can wrap them. And, they just really focus on the kids and the giving that can occur during the Christmas season. So if you have anything that you think you might want to donate or know of anybody that does, they're always looking for male-oriented gifts because the dads seem like they don't get enough of the presents because there aren't male gifts. So, male gifts or things that the kids can use with their siblings, like sports equipment, balls and stuff like that. So that will be if you go out to their website, the Algonquin community has a website. They will say when they're going to be collecting, but you just bring it there, and it's pretty easy to get to.
I love that idea.
Isn't that the cutest thing?
Love it. I absolutely love it.
I think that's so neat. I know. It's a really good community. They really try to do a lot, and I really think it's nice. The second thing that I wanted to tell you about was I don't know if you've heard of BITK Youth Coalition. The BITK stands for Be in the Know, Be in the Know Youth Coalition. And they have an annual meeting every year at Bridgewater State. And it's for teenagers and college kids. So it's a mixture of, the high school kids and the college kids. And this year's is going to be in March 12th. And it's like going to a conference, like what you guys just did. And they have speakers and they have people talking about wellness. They have people talking about leadership. They have people talking about drug education, all those kinds of things, suicide. And so it's the kids that go really feel like they are a part of they can go back and use this stuff in their community and be a leader in their community. So if you know anyone that's interested in that, they're supposed to advertise it in the school, in the two high schools. And I did let Carolyn Rain, who is the head of the nurses, let her know about it too, so that she can get the word out with the nurses. But if you know anyone, yeah, I think it's a good thing to have them join into.
Yeah, I have two that come to mind.
Okay.
And then we could that could be one channel that we get this word out, because we've been working as a board through myself, the principal of both North and South high schools. So I'll knowing this, I'll follow up with you, Dr. Reed, on some more information on this,
Yeah.
and to get it in the pipeline with them in their uh sciences area. So
Yeah, I think it'll be really great. And then one last thing, May, who's the head of the group, is also an educator at High Point. High Point has a lot of prevention services, and they have a new booklet out. It's called How to Handle program gambling.
Yeah.
They do a lot with addiction, and so the addiction that they're talking about recently is gambling addiction, and it's geared to adults, but there's also a section in here on adolescence and how the adolescent brain can get addicted to gambling quickly.
Sure.
So these they would be willing to give to anybody, and they'll even go to locations and teach people, do the training. So that's what I got from my meeting there.
Are there any questions from the board, members for Dr. Reed? Any questions from Public Health Division, Karen, Margaret? Any follow-ups? Okay. I do have one question, Dr. Reed. With May, you know, we've talked here to a certain extent about nicotine pouches and children and adolescents and you know, high schoolers as a new gateway to that level of addiction. Clearly, May presented the Kratom discussion to us, so that's on their radar. If there's a way to get some data that may have regarding nicotine and so forth. I know the gambling is something I've started to see, and it's more social, you know, at the macro level. We've become like a national gambling,
Well, it's
you
a
know,
lot of sports gambling
yeah.
that is,
And the access
and I
is
think the kids will really get into that because they love
right. And
sports.
yeah, and there's that level of, you know, the endorphins, right? That you get that kind of
Mhm.
excitement, that high that you want to get when you're right.
Yeah.
And there's that level of potential addiction there. So it's interesting. And it's just from the standpoint of awareness, right? There's plenty of legislation around that, limiting gambling to
Yeah.
a certain age, and you can't do it, just like our tobacco is and some of our other products are limited to a certain age as well. So
I'll ask
awareness
her
and
about the
education.
tobacco.
Yeah.
I'll ask her about that.
Yeah, if that's you know,
Mhm.
front and foremost, because at the end of the day, we have a lot of priorities and we have only so much limited resources, and we have to just see which are the areas that
Mhm.
experts like May and the different areas that we have are focusing on as a public health issue.
Yeah.
That okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Next on the agenda is the NDCAP update. I know, Dr. Potvin, it's been, a couple meetings. So if you have any, updates for the group,
Yeah,
uh,
I do, Lorenzo.
thank you.
So what goes on at the meetings, they meet every other month, usually the fourth Monday in the month. I've been going to the meetings long before I was even a member, but I am now a member of the group, and Kevin Canty chairs the group. So what's happened recently is he actually has instituted as part of the routine agenda that anyone on the panel, and I think there's at least 21 of them, can ask for something to be placed on the agenda for a future meeting. The way it happens, however, is that if you make the suggestion, then it is subject to a majority vote by the members. And it's not just the members present, it's the entire 21 member group. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult to get enough people to agree on something like that. But I do know that at the November meeting, which will be coming up at the end of this month, there will be some people from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission present to give presentations and provide answers. And although it took me quite a number of tries, I finally got a unanimous agreement to have in the January meeting a discussion about the dry casks that they store the used nuclear fuel rods in, which are sitting kind of close to the road over there. And a lot of people are really, really concerned about those. So the whole tech people will bring someone in who's very knowledgeable about the casks and the construction. And I was asked to find someone else that's not part of Holtec, so I found a distinguished professor at Ohio State University that's also going to join in that discussion. The other thing that just happened, and I didn't know this until I came back from MHOA, apparently on Thursday, the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, turned down the appeal of Holtec for the previous decision that they made, and it was because of the Ocean Sanctuaries Act, which is part of Massachusetts law. Holtec wanted to dump I should say, discharge, to be correct. They wanted to release, that's even better, the radioactive contaminated wastewater in the plant, of which is about 800,000 gallons left, into Cape Cod Bay. Well, this caused a huge stir. And eventually the DEP told them that they couldn't do it because of the Ocean Sanctuaries Act. So of course, Holtec appealed that decision to the DEP. And many months later, as of last Thursday, the DEP finally decided that no, we're not going to allow your appeal. The denial of your ability to dump it into Cape Cod Bay stands. So the next step will probably be first Commissioner Heipel, the head of DEP, has to make a final judgment on that, but she's been asked to do so by a broader group of DEP personnel. Assuming she does, Holtec claims that they will next take their appeal to the courts. And that's a little worrisome because in New York State, where they worry about the Indian Point nuclear reactor right on the Hudson River, the state legislature banned them from dumping the same water in the Hudson River. And then it went to the courts and the courts overruled them. So it's an ongoing battle, to put it mildly. But there are other things coming up in the future at those meetings. I know that there's been several people that want to have a discussion about elevated cancer rates that are present in the population in Plymouth and in Plymouth County. And there is a correlation with proximity to the location of the plant. The reason for that is that Dr. Petros Koutrakis, who is a faculty member at the Chan School of Public Health at Harvard University, actually came and took dust samples from people's houses and soil samples from people's houses with their permission at varying distances from the plant. They analyzed it for everything that they could think of that might present a radioactive exposure hazard, and they found it. And it did correlate with proximity to the nuclear power plant. They think it probably mostly came when the power plant was in operation, not what's going on during the decommissioning work that Holtec is doing. But it's there, and it's stuff that lasts a long time. And it is correlated as a cancer causer because of the prolonged low dose exposure, especially for, again, I know I said this before, younger kids and children are more at risk than adults. And I could go into an explanation of that, but I'll hold that because it could take me a while to do it. So that's basically what goes on at the meetings. It's a controversial sort of thing, and there's a lot of discussions that can get very heated because there's a lot of environmental people there from the local towns, and there's a lot of people that support Holtec. So it's an interesting sort of experience, being there for those kind of discussions. It certainly is interesting. And I think a lot of people do come to those meetings, and there's usually demonstrations out on the town hall lawn before they start the meeting. So that's basically what's been happening there for the past couple of months at least.
Thank you, Dr. Potvin, for that update. Are there any questions for Dr. Potvin from the Board of Health members? He's seeing none from the Public Health Division. Margaret, Karen? My question is, Dr. Potvin, is now that the DEP has kind of made this process around the start of a decision on releasing the tritiated water, the 800,000 gallons, is there any discussion about the evaporation or the accelerated evaporation? Is there a cease and desist on that? Do you know? I don't remember where that's left.
Well, when they were told they couldn't discharge it into Cape Cod Bay, they then reported that they were putting submersible heaters into the water. And the reason for it, they stated, was to make sure that the workers in the building where the water was being stored would be comfortable during the colder weather. So that was supposedly the reason. But the end result of that is that tens of thousands of gallons of that water gets evaporated into our air every couple months. So it's a slow, gradual process. They said Holtec has stated that if they are not allowed to eventually dump it into the bay, they can legally, according to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, change the submersible heaters from keeping a 90-degree Fahrenheit temperature up to almost a boiling water temperature, which would greatly accelerate the release into the air. And so there's a huge battle going on over that as well, as you can imagine.
Yeah, because if you make it water vapor, it'll go into the atmosphere and then drop down somewhere nearby,
Yeah,
wherever the wind.
as it goes into the air, it also comes back, not only distributed but in the air, but it comes back down in the form of rain.
Mhm.
And that's when you start finding things beyond tritium in the ground and the dust samples. I was shocked that they found so much in the dust inside people's houses. Haven't gotten an explanation for that yet, but it's there. And it is a public health hazard. There's no doubt about it.
So there's, at least from what I understand, if I can echo this back to you, there's nothing legally that can stop them being Holtec from accelerating the evaporation of the water.
Well, according to the people at MAHB, the Plymouth Board of Health does have the authority to stop that with a cease and desist order. But if you tried to do that, I'm sure that Holtec would go to court.
That at least it's their legal right to do that currently.
According to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, yes. There is another option for them to follow if they wanted to, and that is to ship the water to a disposal facility which is licensed to receive that material down in Texas. That's what they did at the reactor that was closed in Vermont, the Yankee nuclear reactor. But of course, that's an extremely expensive process for the company.
Sure. I mean, it's easier to just crank up the heaters to boiling point and watch thousands of gallons of water evaporate.
Yes.
Okay. All right. If there are no further questions, we'll move on. Meg, if you could provide a chip update. I know before you do that, speaking with Michelle Brady, the Commissioner of Health and Human Services, HRIA is going to present at our first December meeting an update, a presentation, and they'll be able to present some of the findings of the surveys and things like that. But if you have anything as a preview to that, and of the past few meetings that you've attended, I know Karen, you're part of that whole process of the steering committee, but I'll start with Meg, if you don't mind.
Sure. We haven't met in a while. I think the last time we met was September. Our last meeting was canceled. I did reach out to HRIA today to get some updated statistics on what we've received so far for the survey responses. I could talk to that, or I can hold off knowing that they're going to present in December, that's up to you. Or I can just give some general findings.
Yeah, some general findings I think is good, nothing specific. I
Okay.
want to give, I'd like to give HRIA and
Mhm.
them the opportunity to get into the details, but come December, but nothing really specific, just in general terms, I think would be good at this point. So, just the fact that you're giving an update, you haven't met, that is a data point that we could take from that whole process, and we'll see how that plays out in December too. So.
Yeah. Well, I think I spoke last time to how like diverse the group is and like who makes up like the membership of the steering committee, and it's really hard to align our schedules so that everyone's able to attend and really contribute. So I think that's part of it, but I'm hoping that we get to meet soon. Even though we haven't met, I know that they're still working really hard behind the scenes. So some general findings, they've got a great response, a lot of completed surveys, I think more than they typically see, which is wonderful. However, a large portion of the surveys are from a specific demographic, older, meaning 55 and over, white women is the majority of the people that have completed surveys. So I know that they're going to take that information and target some other groups, some non-English speaking groups, younger populations, and males as well.
Oh, that's great. That's always a bias that you'll get with surveys, right? That you'll get that risk of having, if you say, oh, we did a survey, we had 500 responses, but if you don't look underneath the waves of the survey of where you're pulling that demographic, it can become biased to that extent. And if they can do some weightings, based on if they have a few things, then that can kind of mitigate that risk. But yeah, that's good to know. That's
Yeah,
really good
it
to
was
know.
interesting too. A lot of the people who responded are longtime Plymouth residents. So not a lot of representation from newer residents. But I think that there's a lot of pride with people who have lived here for a long time, and they're happy to share their experience, which that's kind of how I interpreted that statistic, but I thought that was
Good.
interesting.
No, anecdotally, I'm not a long time resident, and there was 2 from our household that finished those surveys. So,
I did see my kids do go to the or in the school system. I did see that the school had also sent it out to everyone, which was good.
thank you.
Mhm.
Karen, did you have anything to add as a steering committee member?
I would just piggyback onto what Meg said, that we still have paper surveys in the public health division, first floor of the town hall. And they're also at both the Manamet Branch Library and the main public library. So any young folks out there, any newbies to the town of Plymouth who want to come by, you don't have to pick up the paper one. We can give you a QR code and you can scan the QR code and you can do it on your phone. But feel free to come on by and either scan the code or pick up a paper copy.
Thank you. And then the last item is the micromobility. I forwarded the presentation that was presented, I believe, in early October to the select board. There was a follow-up, or maybe even September, and then there was a follow-up in October with our town council with some legislation pieces. I did forward that off to the Board of Health members. The reason I brought that to our attention is because in a previous meeting, Dr. Reed had presented some things on e-bikes and public safety around that and health. So I thought, okay, this is a kind of a concern because at the level of at the select board and things like that, as well as from a public safety and public health, there was a presentation made. The things that I can bring up is that on the presentation, I think it was one of the last few slides, that from a survey of folks, that it's 51% have either a concern, whether it's slight, moderate, or high, but 51% of the people said that they were concerned about e-bikes and things like that. And there's more to come with that. I think the focus on that has been two-pronged. Public health and public safety, but and more specifically, public safety. Whether it's legislation or a bylaw, there's things in the works around that. And I think we were, from a public health perspective, we're on the periphery. We can clearly say that a lot of things are based on that have impact to public health, but I think this is really right in the wheelhouse of public safety. Okay. Any questions or comments on that topic? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the next is our new old business. I know we're a little bit early. Our next Board of Health meeting is on November 19th. It'll be the first hour, and then we'll have our public forum. And I'm sure we're getting questions, and we had a kind of a small preview from potentially 2 speakers today. We had a meeting, our last Board of Health meeting, where we had Katie Marini speak. Hopefully she'll be there. And I'm trying to work with some of our retailers to kind of come in, because I did mention previously that speaking with one retailer, and it's again a sample of one, they self-regulate the natural leaf kratom behind the counter and things like that. They don't want to sell that to anyone under 21. They kind of not kind of, but they card, you know, they look for ID, and they do that on a self-regulatory basis. But I'd like to have them come in and present and give their perspective, you know, not just a bunch of science and public health concerns, but also, hey, they're part of the community, and they're selling it for a reason that some folks find benefit from. So we'll see from there.
Lorenzo, would you like
Yeah.
to have that, if we can get it, would you like it to be publicized through I'm sorry, not PAC TV, Local Scene?
Absolutely, we can. Yeah,
Yep.
I know that the ad went out
It
already.
did.
Then
Yep.
while you were gone, so that's great. But anytime that we can get more awareness, I think it's a good thing to have more people hear about it, see about it, and you know, ask questions in the public forum, you know.
I'll reach out to David Antoine at Local Scene and request.
Great.
Excuse me, Lorenzo,
Sure.
as the folks were talking earlier, 2 things occurred to me. One was that we need to have somebody that is a PharmD who knows about it, because we talk about, you know, half-lives and you know, how addictive it is and that sort of thing. And I think we need a, you know, chemical person to do that. The other thing is, I'm curious if the pain clinic folks are using it, suggesting it, or what their feelings are on it. And, you know, we have a pain clinic at Cape Cod. I don't know if there is one up here. But it would be interesting to get one of those physicians that specializes in pain management. See if because it sounds like a lot of these people are, you know, have chronic pain, arthritis and that sort of thing. And so it would be interesting to know if they've seen this being used over time.
I think if we, as a board and the public health division, and, you know, we're in Plymouth, so we should, if we have any contacts with BID, we should, you know, follow up on those things. I think those are great ideas. I know personally I'll follow up as much as I can on the Farm D and the pain clinic.
Yeah, well, and they might have a Farm D here, I don't know. And they might have a pain clinic, I don't know that either. So
Right.
I can try and find that out too.
That'd be great.
Okay,
Anyone, yeah, it's really a call out for all hands on deck on this one. All of us
yeah,
as board members, we could reach out to whoever we have and then ask them to, if they can speak at the 11/19 public forum
okay.
on the topic. Great. Any new business or old business that anyone wants to bring up? I have one old business. I know that over the last week, and I think you might have seen it reported in the news, one of the wind turbine blades fell in Plymouth, that bog area. And my question is, I know that in the past, I think there was previous boards had voted a certain a public nuisance. I think there was a vote for that. And the most recent, and this is, I'm just going from my history, and I'd like to talk about it as a board, is that the last thing we had was a letter, Dr. Potvin, to Mr. Dixon that we provided at the a recent board, I think in 2023, where we gave a conditional rescission of that nuisance at that board meeting. I remember taking, I think we voting on it. I know I was a board member at the time, and I think we gave that. But was there any follow-up with Mr. Dixon or anything from that? And because, and I like a comment from the Public Health Division. Karen, where do you believe our rescission stands? Is it actually at that point, or are we going to wait for
It was withdrawn. What the board voted to withdraw the abated nuisance. So there is no, it's been rescinded. It's gone.
It's been rescinded? Okay. So there is no at this point, the disposition as the nuisance was rescinded, even though we didn't have Mr. Dixon come and do some mitigation pieces.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Is that your take on that as well, Dr. Potvin?
Yeah, I do remember that basically it went on for longer than I can even imagine.
Right.
And it was a very complicated, lengthy process. But the bottom line was something happened in Plymouth just like what happened in Bourne. And Bourne is right on the border with Plymouth where those wind turbines are located. And what happened was that it gets to the point where in order to provide, a stoppage in the use of those wind turbines, even after you make a public nuisance declaration, it's going to go to court. And you have to have standing before the court, and it's going to cost a lot of legal time. And there was various incredibly worrisome estimates about the legal cost involved because there was going to be a huge battle with the company that actually owns the wind turbines. So we really didn't have much choice, as I recall. We didn't have the resources to pursue it legally anymore. The people that were directly affected didn't have the resources to pursue it through a legal process. And if that's the case, then the only other way you can handle it is to rescind the declaration of public nuisance. And that's what the board decided to do.
Okay. Well, thank you for that kind of history, because it came up this past week, and I just wanted to refresh from a current board membership where we stand on that. And we'll go from there. Thank you. Any questions on that topic? All right, our favorite time, adjournment. So if I can get a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Okay, a second
I'll second.
with a first from Dr. Reed and a second from Meg Payne. We'll take the vote. Dr. Reed,
Yes.
Dr. Potvin,
Yes.
I know Amy Palmer had left, Meg Payne,
Yes.
and myself, yes, unanimous. Thank you all. Have a good evening.